What's going on, everyone? This is Jordan again from the Undergraduate Survival Guide, and today we have a very, very special guest, Julia. Julia, you actually messaged me probably about a month ago. To be fair, I've been a bit slow on the replies. Just saying that you saw the show, you gave me details of your experiences, and thought, yeah, it'll be great to come on. And honestly, like, haven't read, even though it's just a summary, haven't read that. I was like, I need to have you on this show. There are so many students that go through non-linear routes that feel like they're alone and feel like things are harder than they need to be. So it's like so important that people like us, people like anyone else who's gone through non-linear routes can share their stories and experiences. Like, I think that's very helpful for so many students, and I'm so happy to have you on today, Julia. Like,
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. And I love that part that you mentioned about not feeling alone, because that was such a key aspect of getting through college, was the community that I found and helping me through just all the different obstacles and successes and challenges that university has. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, just to fill everyone in on what you told me, we're going to, of course, ask more questions throughout anyway. Ooh. So you were at uni or college, I need to get this right, for 5 years. You did a gap year, 3 different majors. So that's fascinating, because in the UK, you can't really change as easily. So I'm happy to find out more about that later as well. 2 different universities, like, sounds like such a long journey. I mean, did you ever feel like, why am I doing this?
Yeah, it felt like every time I was getting close to finishing college, something would come up, and I just, there was just like another obstacle that I'd have to work through. So it kind of felt like it was like this little treat dangled in front of me, but it kept like going further and further away. So yeah, the 5 very long years.
Yeah, that's nuts. Tell us about it. So how did it all start off for you? And then, how did the first 3.5 years go, I guess? And and then more importantly, like, what turned it around, and how did you feel coming out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that question. So when I first graduated high school, I was set on attending a university called the University of California, Riverside. And my older brother had went there. It was a great school, like 20 minutes away from where I grew up. And that was like my plan. I was going to study political science, and that was going to be like my set goal. And like, I had this like dream laid out in front of me where I would just do one thing forever and be happy. And that did not end up being the case. So while I was at UC Riverside, I changed my major from political science to public policy. So not like a super big change, but more specific to what I wanted. And then Hurricane Harvey hit. So Hurricane Harvey hit Texas, and I was observing from California, and I was like, I really want to do something. I don't know if this is like the wise decision. So like, I went for a week, went to volunteer, and I fell in love with it. And I ended up taking a gap year from university and just falling in love with it and spending a year helping rebuild homes that were affected by Hurricane Harvey. So that was like my first pause in education.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when it came time to like come home, I actually started working at the Disneyland Resort, which is crazy. And they launched a program where they would cover 100% of tuition for certain universities.
Wow.
Which was like incredible. I was like, great, I could finish school. So I ended up eventually completing my degree at Wilmington University as a communications major. So that's my story in a nutshell.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's so lucky that Disneyland were happy to cover your degree. Like, in the UK, we only pay like $9,000 per year, but whenever I look at how it is the state in the US, it's like so expensive, and it must have been like a massive achievement to know that, this is all covered by by the company. So
yeah, I was so thankful. It launched about a week or so after I started working at Disneyland, which was crazy. So like, I had to wait a few months to be eligible for the program, but once I did, I was like, this is how I'm going to finish school.
Yeah. That's fascinating. So, like, from your story, I gathered that the hurricane was the main instigator, I guess, and what made you change course and change your trajectory, right? How did you come across, like, what spurred you to put your degree to a side for a moment to go and volunteer and help rebuild houses? It sounds like such a massive step forward, and such an important one in your journey. Like, what what was the reason for that?
Yeah, absolutely. That was an opportunity that completely changed my life. And I think what helped me a lot was my previous engagement with like the disaster relief world. So on summer breaks, I would often volunteer with an organization called All Hands and Hearts, and they rebuild homes and schools. I would mostly work with them over in like Louisiana. So when came time to take a break from school, I ended up joining them for that year and volunteering with them. So I don't know. I just kind of wanted to, that disaster was just so tragic and so big, and I wanted to look back at this period of life having done something instead of like quietly observing. So I'm really glad that I was able to take that year off and volunteer.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you live in California normally with your family? Or is it a lot of traveling from, college first time and then volunteering?
Yeah, that's a good question. I grew up in California, and then I ended up living in Texas and Louisiana for that year.
Yeah, that's nuts. So you literally uprooted your whole life in many ways and then just embarked on this journey. What was that year like of rebuilding houses? Because it sounds, in my head, a lot more practical, like, literally laying brick by brick. But I imagine your experience was a bit different to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my first engagement with like disaster relief work, I had never held a hammer before in my life. Like, I did not know any construction, which just shows how like patient everybody at that organization is in teaching you like what to do. But yeah, a lot of people compare it to like adult summer camp, which I think is a really accurate description. Like, a lot of times you live in like churches or schools or community centers that give up their space so they can house volunteers. So I spent a year living on an air mattress with like 70 other people from all over the world that come down to help. And it's a really unique experience because you live with the people that you work with. So you're spending all the time together. The people that you're working in the field with, you're also brushing your teeth next to in the morning. Like it's a very fun dynamic of like meeting a lot of people and doing this work that bonds. I don't know. It's a unique experience that like really bonds you to somebody, So
yeah, I can imagine like, because one of my friends, he was this national service in Singapore, and he was telling me like you're literally seeing a whole different side of these people. Because it's one thing to like work with someone and to live with someone something else, but to literally have the same group around you like 24/7, and you know a lot more about them. It's a very I guess eye-opening experience, not just from a professional side, but also from a personal side, and knowing more about people. I imagine you have a similar take on that as well. Like,
yeah, I love that. I bet his experience in Singapore was like absolutely amazing. That's super cool. I think I learned a lot about the community too, because coming from California, I guess I had a lot of predisposed beliefs about what I thought the South was going to be like.
okay,
And I found that through service and like just getting to meet the people that were so resilient and like have faced having their home flooded multiple times. Like, I don't know, it just really humbles you and teaches you a lot about the resilience of people after a natural disaster.
yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, and it's so nice to hear. Like, I can only imagine from the UK, I always look at America and to see so many different parts. There's California there, there's like New York and everything over here. It seems so separate, but to constantly be reinformed about like we actually are very commutative here. We like talking to each other, even though it's not so easy with different states. It's nice to know that there is still there's still faith in humanity.
Absolutely. I love that. We had a lot of volunteers actually from the UK, and that was always fun because they were like, come visit. I'm like, I wish I could.
Oh, nice. Did you have debates about who speaks the proper English, or is it?
Yeah. So sometimes we would have people from like, we had a volunteer that stayed with us for a while that was like right outside of London, and then we had somebody right outside of Manchester, and they'd always get into their own little
Yeah, as a Londoner, it's hard to speak the Manchester language sometimes.
I love it.
That's fascinating though. So you, after your break in Texas, you did 3 straight years, I imagine, in a after working at Disneyland or Disney bars to say so. Was that final part of your journey just a straight study and then get your degree, or were there more setbacks in that process as well?
Yeah, so for the most part, once I started at Disney and with their program, things were going actually really smoothly. Like I was working at Disney, I was interning at a production company. Like it was incredible. There was a really big setback in 2020, as I feel like that whole year was just one big setback for everybody.
Yeah.
But I actually, so Disney ended up laying off like 32,000 cast members, and I unfortunately was one of them.
Wow.
And that was just because like the park was closed for over a year, and like we kind of like knew it was coming, but didn't want it to be coming. Um, but when I got that call, I like immediately freaked out because I was like, I literally had one semester left to finish school, and I was like, are you kidding me? Like so close to finishing school. Um, so I got off the phone with Disney and I called my academic advisor. And I was like, can I just register for the rest of my classes and get them done in like 2 months? And she was like, that's crazy, but if you want to, you can. So from like August to December, I took 12 classes to finish
Ooh.
school, which is crazy. But yeah, that was like a huge setback of like, if they're taking me to my college, I'm just gonna finish it all before they do. So that's it.
Yeah, that's crazy though. I mean, fair play to you for trying to do that. I mean, I feel like a lot of students would have seen the opportunity, disappear and be like, you know what, let me pay for it myself, or maybe just drop out entirely. Like to take on that challenge of having to do 12 modules in like, that's so crazy. And honestly, shout out to you for completing it. That's such an amazing story. Like I don't know how I would have reacted in that instance. Would it have been possible for you to just pay the rest on your own, or?
It would have been challenging. The school by itself, without the support of Disney, is pretty expensive, and at the time, I was like in the process of moving too. So, I feel like doing those 12 classes was a good thing for me at the time because it was just like all I poured my energy into. Like I poured processing losing my job into school, and like it worked for me. Like I feel like it was like a good thing for me at the time.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. Do you like? What do you think you learned from that? Do you? I know it's quite a big question, but because obviously having to put everything aside and be like, I'm going to do just work for 2 months. Like, how did that make you grow? I suppose. What did you have to learn to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I learned more about myself that like when I have a goal, I'm able to achieve it. So between my college journey, I've always struggled with this idea of like, am I a consistent person? Like, can I actually like get things done? Just because of like how all over the place my college journey has been. And I think that experience really showed me that like that there is like strength inside of me and that I can get goals done when I have the fire under me to get them done. I don't know, like I feel like it showed a lot about myself that I didn't know was there.
Yeah, no, I understand that because I think even me myself, sometimes I'm like, am I really capable of doing this? Am I really able to do as much work as I tell myself I can? But it's only like under those positions of like actual pressure, of actual stress, when you realize like, oh yeah, like I actually am capable of doing so much more. And I imagine it's just so eye opening, especially once you come out of the other end. It's like I can do anything I want. Like I've done so much under the pressure. Like I know what I'm about now, and that must be a great feeling.
Yeah, I feel like imposter syndrome is something so real for our generation too. Like, I don't know if you relate to this at all, but like, I struggle with that a lot. And I think this past year has shown me that like, even my rock bottom really isn't that bad. Like, it feels like I got to rock bottom a little bit. And being able to climb out of that has taught me a lot about like, why am I not trying more things then? Like, if you can get past the worst possible situations, then shouldn't that be a reason to like dream even bigger and like to try even more things? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's a very positive take because I think so many people, once even if you do overcome the imposter syndrome, you start to interpret your level as that. But fundamentally, as you just say, like if you can achieve, this level, surely you can just go on to do even more. And what's the old saying? Like if you aim for the stars and you hit the moon, you're still like overachieving, kind of thing. It's like
Yeah.
once like, okay, I've done this. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to go on from there. But like, you know what? Let me try and double that or triple that, or Of course, depending on your ambition. But no, I completely understand that. I totally agree as well. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to do this thing where instead of challenges making my dreams smaller and like instead of making myself smaller when confronted with challenges, I'm trying to dream bigger and to like imagine how things can be different after this. You know, like I don't know. That I it's comforting to me to do that.
yeah, I like that. What do you think has, I guess, changed the most since the beginning of your journey to where you are now? Like, I can imagine you dream a lot bigger now, but I don't know. How would you articulate that in terms of like what has actually physically changed? Do you think?
Yeah, I drink a lot more coffee now. I feel like that's a big thing that's changed. In terms of like actual changes to my life, I mean, like I've graduated, which is super exciting. I currently live in New York, so I recently packed up everything from California and moved over to Brooklyn, New York.
Ooh.
Um, and I think the overall thing is again just being more confident in myself and my abilities and learning to like lean on other people for help because I feel like I don't know, for me personally, that's something that I had to learn is like reaching out to people, like not being a little hermit and like getting help for that. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, especially the last bit, like learning to ask for help. That's something that me myself, I'm still working on myself because it's when I retook a year the first time at university, obviously I didn't know anyone in the year below me, so it was very hard to, I guess, to stay up to date. If I fell behind, I wasn't in the group chat. I didn't know the smart guy in the class to go to. And I very quickly became like a little hermit, just tried to get on with it myself, try and figure out everything on my own. And that really made me realize, like, look, even though you might feel bad asking for help immediately, like, fundamentally, there's nothing wrong with it. There genuinely are people out there that do want to help you. And there's a saying, like, if you want to go fast, go on your own. If you want to go far, go together. And that really made me think, like, you know what? I might as well just, let me just ask this person to put me in a group chat. Let me just start going to the right seminars, talking to the right people. And that turned my whole journey around. Like, obviously that's an academic experience, but I can imagine that even outside in the real world, just talking to the right connections really does have like so much weight to it and can take you such a long way. I guess on that point, is there anyone in particular, like a mentor you might have, or someone who like really helped you and inspired you to come to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So I have to give credit to my former roommate, Kennedy, because throughout the last year, um, we were living together when we got like all the worst news imaginable, like about Disney. Like we were both working at Disney together.
Oh,
We both like were in school at the same time. Like she has been like there for me through the craziest year imaginable, and like sometimes like support just looked like us driving around a parking lot, rolling down our windows and like singing on top of our lungs. Like that's what we would do when we were getting like overwhelmed. We'd be like, do you want to go to the Target parking lot and just drive around? And that's what we were those people. So Kennedy was like a huge just support system in the last year. But in terms of like mentors, my dad is actually a huge mentor to me. He's just kind of been through my side for a lot of different things, and he helps me like kind of like turn my dreams into bigger things. So I'll come to him and be like, Dad, like I think I want to do this thing, and he'll be like, well, what if you do this? What if you do this? And like I just always appreciate his perspective a lot because I feel like I'm always learning from him. But yeah.
yeah, I can imagine that's really valuable. What's that been like? I suppose I'm not sure how long you've been in New York for exactly, but now that you're very far away from your family, has that been like a culture shock at all, or have you just been very comfortable? Like, what, let me just go and do what I've got to do out in New York, and then figure things out later. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic with my family because they know that I like traveling. Like when I went to do my gap year in like Texas and Louisiana, like of course it was hard to be away from family, but like I feel like they know that that's where my heart is at. So they've always been really wonderfully supportive of that. I've been in New York for 4 months now, and I miss them so
Mm.
much. I'm going home in June once I'm fully vaccinated, just to visit home for a few days and like see everybody again. And I'm really excited just to reconnect. We like email each other and message each other all the time, but nothing is compared to like face to face time.
Yeah, for sure. I think the whole world kind of learned that
Yeah.
last year, I think. I guess briefly on that, like, what's your number one coping method? Is it like are you a Zoom call person, like a FaceTime quizzes or something? What's your de facto lockdown,
Ooh, that's a good
methods?
question. I feel like for me, I listen to a lot of music, and that has helped me a lot. I've always just had like a really emotional connection to music, and I feel like that's been like my number one thing during quarantine is just to like come up with like different playlists or discover new music. That's my number one thing. What about you? Like, what has been your coping mechanism?
Oh, for me, coping has been interesting. I've been doing so many random things. Like, of course, I started this podcast during lockdown. I started reading again. And it got to a point, I'm like, oh, it's actually been like 6 months. I didn't even realize time had passed. I've been doing so much. So I guess it doesn't sound like the healthiest coping method, but just, staying busy, staying active. At least, I can argue that what I'm doing is, productive busyness instead of just being like lazy or something. So, yeah, having some sort of passion or goal, I guess, and then working towards that in a productive way has just helped me cope a lot throughout lockdown. To be honest, I'd benefit from a few more months.
Absolutely, I love that.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to. I mean, I want to go out and the cinema and stuff, but I'm not looking forward uh, to stopping this yet. I want to get to a nice place first.
Absolutely. What has it been like in the UK? Are you all still under like really strict lockdown, or are you like starting to slowly open up again?
Yeah, I mean, the UK has been very like, interesting. I call it interesting for lack of better words. So we went into lockdown March 23rd, and the government were like, yeah, a couple of weeks will be okay. A few weeks went by, so a couple of months will be okay. Next thing we know, it's like the beginning of summer. And then they rolled out like a tiered system. So every region would have like a different set of rules. And then throughout summer until now, we've had variations of lockdown, national lockdowns, and then tiers, and then lockdown and tiers. At the moment, from December until now, we're in a new national lockdown, and they're slowly easing restrictions, bringing more things back. So at the moment, we're allowed to go outside and be in groups of 6 or more, or up to 6 or 2 households. Restaurants opened, or outdoor restaurants opened like a week ago. So it's okay. It's not proper lockdown, but it's also not quite normal as well. So the current date is June 21st to be completely back, quote unquote, back to normal, depending on how vaccinations go. But yeah, one more month, well, month and a half or so, 2 months, and then hopefully, if everything goes right, we'll be in the clear in the UK.
That's crazy. It's such an interesting space to be in where like we're still processing what happened last year, but like the world is slowly reopening. I don't know, like I feel like some of the anxieties from last year will take some time to unlearn a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the things we learned last year, for example, work from home, I'm not sure if you have much experience with that as well, but a lot of people are like, you know what, I prefer this. I've seen
Exactly.
some companies offering like 2 days on, 3 days off, and things like that. Like, I'm fascinated to see like how the world will look. The normal world will look after all of this.
Absolutely. Even like wearing masks, like I didn't get sick at all last year, which I feel very lucky. And I contribute a lot of that to like the fact that I wore masks everywhere. So I'm like, maybe that's what to do during flu season?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember whenever I drive around, I've always got like hand sanitizer, chewing gum, like a bunch of like the stuff in my car. My friends always back in the days, oh, why have you got hand sanitizer? What do you need hand sanitizer for? And then last year happened. I'm like, yeah, you know what? No, this is why I've been. This is how I stay safe. So
You're like, who's laughing now?
yeah, it's crazy. How have things been like? Because I've read a little bit into America, and I know like every state was like super different. Like California were very liberal at the time, right? They was super open. I remember Texas was super open as well, and I think New York was one of the more strict ones. Like I'm not sure if you can validate that, but
Yeah,
it
so
seems
New
like it
York.
would have been quite crazy going back and forth during this time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Each state definitely has their own reopening procedures. New York has been stricter. They're starting to open a lot more though. Like they have indoor dining and like
Hmm.
outdoor dining. which like is crazy. They're starting to really boost vaccinations. Like there's vaccinations available, like widely available everywhere now, which is great because it used to be really hard just to get an appointment. Like people would stay up till like 3 a.m. refreshing the screen.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so things are slowly opening up, especially I work in like a lot of hospitality tourism spaces, and we're starting to get more visitors from neighboring states. But yeah, it's an interesting place to be in. A lot of people are eager for like Broadway to reopen. Not yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, hopefully by the end of the year things will be a bit more friendly, I suppose.
Absolutely. I heard West End is reopen. Is that true? Like West End Broadway?
I believe it's open, but only in a like kind of half open. You can go there. The outside stores are all set up, but it's not like open. To be completely honest, I haven't really looked at the news much. It got to a point where the numbers were just in my face every day, like, oh, this many cases, this many deaths. I'm like, you know what? Let me just do some engineering.
Exactly. I don't blame you.
Yeah, that's been quite interesting. I guess on that as well, like, how do you think your final year went? With what was going on in the global circumstances, a lot of people people have different takes, I suppose, on working from home. The different system. I don't know if the US was the same. We had a lot of systems, like a safety net system in some universities, so you couldn't get worse than what you were already on, and there were so many different things going on. But I guess, how did you find it in that final year, especially in your last push of doing so much in the last 2 months? What was that climate like for you during the early days of COVID?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So for me, my program was online to begin with, so it didn't really feel like much of an adjustment when universities were starting to switch online. I do feel for my friends, though, that were going to physical universities and, had to adjust to an online environment, because I can only imagine how challenging that is,
Yeah.
So it didn't really change too much for me. The biggest bummer was that our graduation got canceled. So I actually, I have like my diploma, but I didn't get like a graduation ceremony, which like I was planning to travel to my university to like get to walk in and like enjoy it. But that's okay. I've made peace with it. Yeah, that was like the biggest change. Is like we didn't actually like graduate in a ceremony. But at that point, like 5 years down the road, I was like, I'm just happy to be graduated and happy to be moving forward past this chapter of my life. So,
yeah. Do you think you would have? I mean, would you care much to have had a proper ceremony? I feel like a lot. I mean, for me, like I like the closure. I'll be like, okay, yeah, it's all done now. This day marks that.
Yeah, I think it would have been nice to have a ceremony, but what I ended up doing instead was I took graduation photos with my friend Lindsay, and we went really extra for them. I bought like a pink graduation robe and like a pink like cap, and we did like a Legally Blonde inspired photo shoot. So that was a fun way of like being done with that chapter. So I celebrated it in a different way.
Yeah, that's crazy. To be honest, I would have done a similar thing. If I was graduating this year, I'd have gone all out on just me and my mates, buy our own gowns, hats.
Exactly. And there I got to wear a pink gown. I wouldn't be able to do that at an actual ceremony. Yeah. No.
That's very true. Maybe that should be the new norm. And
I'm here for it, please.
Honestly, I mean, okay, back to, I guess, more specifics around your degree. Like, so you ultimately majored in communications, am I right in saying that? Yeah. So how are you? I can't imagine how that's taught. Is it just a lot of like social media stuff? I know that's an ignorant take, but what can you tell us about?
Yeah, so we did take classes in social media. We also took a lot of classes about like communication theory. I had to take an online public speaking course, which was interesting to do that in an online environment. So usually, you're speaking in front of people. I took quite a few classes in like news reporting and journalism, which I thought were very useful. And then some like marketing classes as well. So it was kind of like a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the US system, you can take a minor in anything and then determine your major after the first year or something in the US system. Is that correct?
You're close, yeah. So you can take classes, like you can like declare your major, and then if you want to, you can like declare a minor as well. And pretty
Okay.
much anything. Some universities have rules on like what you can declare it in, but yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose you were completely against, going back to the, political sciences and stuff like from your initial year.
Yeah, but what was crazy that while I was a communications major, a lot of that intersected with my former experience in political science. So a lot of my background as in political science helped me later because I was able to like analyze things, and like I feel like it helped me a lot with like my different papers and the reporting that I would do. And so I don't know. It just shows that no time is actually wasted because it'll all be used somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can't remember who it was. It might have been like Steve Jobs or something. Was like you can only connect the dots going backwards. And like every year that goes by, I recognize that more of myself. It's like, why did I do that random class back in 2018? It's like, oh, that's why. Now it's relevant. And
Yeah.
I think it's super important to reflect and to see like where you've come, not just like where you are now, but what you've been through to get there. It's definitely an important step. So I'm happy to see that both of your experiences like intertwined at some point.
Yeah, and it's like this constant learning about what you're passionate about too. So like my background in political science informs the way that I work in communications, and my background in communications informs political. Like I feel like it's a very symbiotic relationship.
Yeah,
So
that's good. Was your initial approach to like become a politician in the long run, or
right now it's a little. I'm looking at grad school right now. 'Cause why not do more school after 5 more years? And then I'm staying pretty open about my future in that I'm not like open in like a bad way in that I don't know what I want to do, but I have a lot of things that I want to do and trying to figure out the best way to honor all those different passions. So I don't know. I used to think that you had to pick one job for the rest of your life and be happy with it, but now I'm realizing like it's kind of more fun just to have a lot of different experiences and like be able to talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think I realized within the last few years that life's not as short as you think. I mean, yeah, technically life is quite short, but you have so much time. If you plan to do like different things, you can actually do that as long as you're focused and stuff. But
Yeah.
you definitely have the time to. There's no need to just do one job your whole life. You can experiment and get around, which is such a nice feeling. It's very freeing once you realize that, because then you're like, you know what? Let me just do what makes me the happiest instead of devoting my life to this one cause that may or may not make you happy. So
Absolutely. And I feel like that complexity is like what makes us human. Like we're meant to have complex interests and passions. Like imagine if I like just liked political science, like that's all I ate, breathed, slept. Like, like I find joy in finding different passions and like interests because I feel like that's a reflection of where I'm at as a 24-year-old and how that might be different 5 years later down the road. I don't know.
yeah. No, I agree. How would you say? So you mentioned you want to go back to grad school to do another 5 years of college, but was that a recent decision, or did you have that in mind for a while that I'm going to go back and do some more studying?
Yeah, it's kind of always been in the back of my mind. My sister is a huge inspiration to me. She's currently getting her doctorate, which is incredible. And like, you go, girl. But yeah, she's a huge inspiration to me. And I like learning. Like, I like being in school. So yeah, it's always kind of been in the back of my mind to pursue grad school.
Yeah, that's interesting. How does it work in the US? You still have to pay for that out of pocket, right? And then which course are you pursuing?
Yeah, so you do have to pay for it out of pocket, and then there's different like entrance exams that you have to do depending on like what you want to study. Right now, I'm looking at like a master's in like either journalism or like international relations, something like that. But staying open, still looking at programs and researching. I think researching universities and programs is so important, and like just seeing if it's a good fit for you.
Yeah, for sure. Like so many people, like change courses and stuff because they just don't put the work in the first place. But yeah, like making sure that your college choice and your master's or major choice is right for you is like so important. So
Absolutely.
do you know if it's going to be online? Are you planning to start in September this year, or is it a longer process than that?
Yeah, so I'm still in the process of applying. So I'm hoping by next spring to be in grad school, but still applying and still so I will keep you updated on that.
I love it. Yeah, at least you're gonna hopefully you avoid any more virtual learning and lockdowns and stuff like.
It'd be great to like actually attend school in a classroom. Like I feel like I got so Zoom fatigued this year. I don't know. Did you get Zoom fatigued at all with like lectures and stuff?
Yeah, even this year, like I currently just had a lecture before this call, like on Zoom. I'm like, oh, I can't do it anymore. Started wearing glasses and everything. It's not going well for me. Like,
Oh no, yeah, I miss being in a classroom, walking on campus, that whole experience.
yeah, that's good. I'd be interested to see how how your experiences tie into where you end up going as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited too. It's exciting once you graduate, undergrad, because for me, like I always dreamed of that moment of being done with undergrad, and now it's like the whole. There's so many different opportunities and options that I can choose to take my life, and it's a weird feeling of like having a lot of ideas about your future.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Do you have any like ongoing projects or things you're working on, or is it just work for you at the moment?
Yeah, I do. So I last March, as quarantine was just beginning, I created an Instagram live talk show called Darling Live.
Wow.
Super fun, and every week we bring on different like actors and musicians and authors, like people that just have an interesting life story, and I bring them on and we talk about their journey. And for me, that's been really therapeutic during quarantine, is just to talk about things with people that just inspire me. So we've been doing that for over a year now. And usually we do 2 episodes a week.
Oh, that seems like a lot of, how long is each episode?
They tend to be like 20 to 30 minutes. So they're really quick, just sessions about what makes them passionate about and what they've been working on and what they want to catch up on.
yeah, that very much mirrors like what I'm trying to do here as well. Because it's like, I guess when I started the undergrad survival guide, I was like, I can just talk about my experiences, but I'm kind of interesting, but like not so much. Like, but there's so many students out there, so many people that can share their own experiences, and you really learn a lot from talking to different people. Hearing their perspectives, different opinions, how they've tackled this and that problem. Like, it is really fascinating. I imagine like you learn so much on your platform as well by talking to people.
Absolutely, and it's also like comforting to like connect with somebody during a time of like social isolation. Like I always feel really comforted when I do Darling Live, especially when it was just beginning, because there was just so much uncertainty about the world. And that show really became just a source of comfort for people that were on the show, for me, for people watching. Like I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, where can we find that? I might take a look now.
Yeah, so it's on Instagram. It's darling.live.
Okay. What was your, I guess, incentive to starting the show? Was just to stay active during lockdown, or?
Yeah. So when lockdown first happened, I was doing a lot of writing for different outlets. So when quarantine first happened, all those events were getting canceled. So I was like, I just want to interview people and like have them on my show. So that's kind of how it all happened. Was a lot of events were getting canceled because of quarantine that I was going to report at, and then we just made our own.
No, I love it. How has your process been in terms of, because I feel like 2 a week is quite a lot. So you must have spoken to at least 100 people over the course of the last year. Like, what's your process been like finding people, not just that you want to talk to, but also getting them actually to come onto the show?
Yeah, it's been interesting. A lot of them like are just my friends. I'm like, hey, do you want to do this together? So that's really fun because it's nice just to catch up with friends and to connect with them on that way. Also to hear about their projects. Like, I am my friend's biggest fan. And the projects that they do like blow my mind, and I love them so much. So that's one big part of it. I also find guests in really weird ways. Like, I'll be scrolling TikTok and like someone will be sharing an interesting story and be like, I have to reach out to this person. I do a lot of like TikTok and social media like pitching. And yeah, just kind of looking at what interests me and what inspires me. So we had somebody when the show was first starting that was like a puppeteer for the Muppets. And I love watching the Muppets. I don't know if you've like watched them at all. So
yeah, that was a childhood show for me.
What happened?
That was a childhood show for me, so.
It's so good. So I like asked them to be on the show and they were a part of it. So things like that, like all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, that's crazy. I like how you actually reach out to people as well. I feel like that's something that I had to come, a hurdle I had to jump over with this platform. It's like, how do I actually, ask people to come on the show? I was always, I wouldn't say scared, but for lack of better words, you're kind of like scared of that rejection. How did you overcome that? And I guess slightly off topic, what's been like your favorite episode so far?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, rejection is such a real thing. Especially when you're like pitching people to like come on the show. I would say for every like 10 emails that I send to people, I get like 7 rejections of like, oh, it's just not a good time, so you kind of have to just keep pushing, and you kind of have to build good relationships with people. Like if they say like, no, I'm not interested, still be cordial, like still be like, oh, would love to have you on at a different time when it works out better.
Yeah.
And that often works, they'll come back, a few months later and be like, I would still love to do this if you're interested. So it really is like, there's no rhyme or reason why people won't accept your pitch. It's all just being persistent and following up and just building good relationships with people, I think is really important. And then for favorite episode, that's so hard because there's been so many incredible people on the show. That's so hard. I would say my buddy Mars came on the show, and he's the voice of like Max Goof from a Goofy movie. Have you seen that movie? Childhood classic. Yeah, so he came on the show and he talked about his journey as a voice actor. And that was just really fun because it felt like a blast from the past.
Did he give an impression at any point?
He did, yeah. It was iconic.
I love it. So yeah, I was asking about your show after some technical difficulties. I guess because I don't want to ask loads of questions about the show. Maybe in another episode we do in the future. But what has been like the most interesting and thrilling part of like growing the page? Because I see you've got like 400 plus followers. Like, it's obviously quite good engagement. But what's been the most like fun part about doing it for you?
Yeah, I love just being able to connect with people. Like sometimes people will message me and be like, I had so much fun watching this show, and like that means so much to me because I literally started this in my room like during lockdown, like just as a passion project, not really expecting anyone to watch it. And like the fact that we have people that regularly watch the show and like look forward to the guests just means so much to me. And it's a challenge to me to like to come up with interesting segments, and like I really enjoy it. It's a great outlet.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Plus, you're using your communications major very well. So
there we go. No, on the show sometime. That'd be so fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm very cool with that. I do love it though. I've seen so many people starting their own projects over lockdown, like especially on Instagram. Like, everyone's like, you know what? Let me just do what I actually want to do for once. And it's just like, I haven't even got the words. I just love to see it. We just love to see it.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Just the creativity that people will come up with during quarantine. And like so many of my friends have started podcasts or like little shops online. And like, I love it. It's so fun.
Yeah. Honestly, like I can't wait to see, like, because obviously I don't want people to stop doing it, but we know people will eventually stop. Like I'm fascinated to see who's going to be the ones to like actually stick it out and grind it out and just keep grown their platform, because I've seen some really fun projects out there, and I'm like, you know what? If I had that idea, I'd be so proud of myself.
Absolutely. I love that. And I hope it continues. I think this year being inside has taught us the importance of having an outlet and like pursuing just hobbies as an adult, because as a kid, you have so many different hobbies, but when you go to adulthood, it's a lot harder to maintain those hobbies. And I think a lot of people have been able to reconnect with that like younger self and get to invest more into those hobbies and interests. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, I couldn't have put it better myself. Like, that's well said. Like, do you have any? I mean, obviously you started the show during lockdown, which is great. But are there any other, childhood things that you tried to rekindle? Maybe like reading, watching movies, and stuff like that. Or?
Yeah, I actually have rekindled love for reading, which has been amazing. Um, it's actually come at a good time too, because I was like, I want to learn how to read for fun again. Because
Yeah.
when you're reading a lot of text for school, it can be hard to like want to read for fun afterwards. So yeah, I spend every morning reading, which is great. Gotten really into like walking outside. That sounds so weird. That's such a weird hobby to bring up. But for me, like, it's just been really important because I spend all day, in here, like working from home when I'm not working at my other job. And so like taking those little walks have been like a little pocket of peace for me in my day of like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm going to step aside from my work and I'm going to go on a walk outside in my neighborhood. Like, such a novel concept.
Honestly, but I completely get it, because I think one thing that I started to fall in love with again before lockdown, which sadly I couldn't continue, was going to the cinema. And I think there are a lot of what we do in life is very active, but we don't really have many, what I call like a passive passion. Like watching a film, you literally just sit there and enjoy it. Going for a walk, you just have to walk and enjoy it. And I've really started to think about what can I do that's actually passive, because even like, maybe you have in the shower, you think it's passive, but you're stressing about, I've got to go back to work, I've got to do this, that, and the other. But how can you maximize like passive downtime just doing literally nothing? And for me, walking has been like has been paramount as well, because you know what, I'm just going to enjoy the sun for a couple hours. Next thing you know, it's like tomorrow.
It's so great.
It's just so relaxing, so therapeutic.
What's been the most like mundane but unhinged thing that you've done during the pandemic? Have you done anything that was just like, this is my new normal?
I mean, I'm sad to say it, but doing dishes. Doing dishes is so fun. I
love
There's
that.
something about doing this with a sponge that I just love it because of lockdown.
I love that. That's amazing. I've gotten into the habit. I don't know if they have this in the UK, but like Zillow, the site to like look at houses.
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay.
That's become my new unhinged hobby of like trying to find what houses I think are haunted. So that's fun. Or like any like weird houses. I don't know. Quarantine.
I had a fun phase of looking at houses in different countries. I'm being like, okay, so in London, like 500,000 will get you this, but in like Zimbabwe, it will get you that. I'm like, wow. And then like New York will get you like a little shed. I'm like, it's not so bad. And then you see like Wyoming or something. It's like, whoa, it's great.
It's so satisfying. I don't know why it is to look at that, but it is.
I think I really started to appreciate how like it's interesting because COVID, everyone kind of felt the same experiences, so it's quite limiting in COVID's eyes. But in terms of like actual culture, it's like things actually are so different anywhere you go. I imagine even throughout the US, California, Texas, and New York, it's even super different, let alone entirely different cultures. So yeah, it's just you constantly remind yourself like, wow, like there's so much more out there than my window.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so well said. And I think that's why I love traveling so much too, because you're really taken outside of what you know to be like your neighborhood and your area, and you're able to just immerse yourself into other people's worlds and to see how different yet how similar we all are. Like, I don't know. I miss traveling very much because of the pandemic, but that's one of the best parts of it.
Honestly, where's the first place you plan on going to after this is all over?
Ooh, yeah. So I really want to go to Amsterdam next. I've never been, and it's been on my list for a long time. So
yeah.
Amsterdam's
really nice. I think it's probably the only European city where weed's allowed. So get that California juices flowing.
That's amazing. What's the number one on your travel list?
Oof. I mean, I mentioned I think I study engineering. I'm very like in my tech zone right now, so I'd love to go to Silicon Valley or just somewhere in California, LA. But
yeah,
it's so expensive. That's obviously a massive obstacle. I think more realistically, probably Singapore. See my friend out there, but yeah, Silicon Valley is the dream right now. If I can just find all the necessary resources to get there.
Yes, that area is so beautiful too. Like it's such a nice part of California, so you'd be living your best life there.
Honestly, the only thing is, when did I look at it last? I think October time, and I just saw pictures of the orange sky and fires. I'm like, oh, maybe not.
Yeah, it's like fire season.
Well, like on that, I guess. Where obviously your home would be California, I guess, because your family are there. But where have you felt the most like objectively at home between your three key states?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like I find pockets of home in the different places that I've lived in their own way. But for me, California will always be home. I spent most of my life there. And like nothing feels like, when you like go on a road trip with your family and you start to go on the way back home and you start recognizing things that's what California feels like to me. So I feel very lucky that I still have the opportunity to visit home and reconnect with that part. So yeah.
No, that's nice. I like that. Family is important, so I I understand that. Do you plan on going there after you finish your your master's, or is New York like the place now?
I don't know. It's so hard because I love the East Coast. And if this year's taught me anything, it's to not plan too far in advance. To be honest, because a global pandemic can change everything. I don't know yet. But I am grateful for California, and I'm grateful for just the family that's there. I have 5 siblings too, so there's a lot of family in California.
Yeah, I've got 4 little ones, so I understand that.
I love that.
Yeah, are you oldest, youngest?
I'm second to youngest, so I'm 5 out of 6.
Yeah. Have you ever? I know it's a bit of a random question, but I feel like as an older sibling, I've always felt more, not paternal, it's completely wrong, but more of like a duty of care around my friends. Like, I'm starting to recognize it now. It's like, I don't know why I care so much about what you're doing, but I just can't help it. Something inside me just can't help it. I wonder if you have like if you notice or recognize anything in yourself about that as well, like being the youngest made you treat your relationships a bit differently.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm the youngest daughter, and I definitely see it because my parents were always really protective of me growing up. They're like, you can't date till you're 30, like
oh, wow.
very much like parent things to their youngest daughter. So I saw that a lot. But yeah, my older siblings totally take up that protective mantle of like, I don't know, it was the coolest thing, like going to school with them at the same time, because there was one period of time where like we would all go to similar schools together. And that was always fun to go to school with your siblings. Yeah. I'm sure they hated it, but I thought it was the coolest thing of like, that's my older sibling, look at them. Like, I don't know. I was that person.
I love that. For me, it was the opposite. I was going to school with my little brothers. Like, you're going to make me late. Come on, hurry up, kids. Like,
I'm sure they felt the same way. I just didn't want to tell you.
I can't wait for them to all to grow up and just to know what I've been through.
Like, now you'll understand. That's so funny.
It's super fun. How old is your oldest? Have you got like a similar set of experiences, or is it a thing where you're just looking up to what will be in the future?
Yeah, so the oldest is 32 and I'm 24. So there's like a pretty decent age gap between us all. But we do have a lot of shared interests. So my oldest brother, he works for the government back home and he does communications. So we get along very well. Like, he gets me. And we all just have like very similar interests. We love Disney. We love traveling. Like, I don't know. I've always gotten along with like my siblings. It's nice.
Yes. I mean, that's perfect. That's what you want to hear. So
yeah, exactly.
Okay, I guess as like closing remarks, like I can go on all day. I've got so many questions. Like I love chatting to you, but
it's such a pleasure.
It'll be great to hear if you have if yourself any closing remarks or anything you want to promote, talk about specifically. Like the floor is yours for as long as you need it to to get off what you have to get off. All the receipts are coming out now, so.
Oh my gosh, I'm here for it. My public speaking class is finally coming in clutch that I had to take online. So I think for me, if anyone's listening to this podcast and has been like, oh my gosh, Julia's life journey is all over the place, it is. And I just want to encourage anybody that if you're going through challenging things, if it feels like college is something that just feels dangled in front of you and that the finish line just gets longer and longer, the more you go. That like if my journey continues anybody, it's that persistence means a lot, and that you are meant to be in this institution, you are meant to be learning. Like what you're doing right now is not wasted time, and I just want to be an encouragement that like if I could get through college through all the different challenges that I've faced, you can too, and I'm rooting for you and I'm cheering you on. And that your journey is your journey. You'll see on Instagram people comparing journeys, and your journey is your own, and that's special and magical. And the fact that you are pursuing an education during a global pandemic and so many different challenges is so admirable. And I'm just cheering you on. I'm your biggest fan. So that's my little word of encouragement of like, keep going, keep rocking it. And don't feel rushed in your own journey, because things will unfold when they're meant to, and you're going to make an amazing impact on the world in your time. So I hope that helps.
I love that. Woohoo. Like, yeah. I wish I wrote that down. Like,
love encouragement. Yeah.
No, that's great. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said as well. Like, just anyone that's listening, just recognize that your time is your time. There's no rush to do anything. And for the most part, things always work out. So, just stick to it. We'll be okay.
Exactly. And then we'll be cheering you on at your graduation ceremony. So, gown.
We honestly need to have like a global class of 2020 ceremony. Just like 7 billion people logged in at once. I really want to see.
That would be, yes, we need to do that. Someone call up like all the world leaders and we'll make it happen.
I don't even know why. I mean, I won't even be invited, but I'll be so gassed at the same time. I'll be on Twitter, just hashtag global 2020 class. Yeah. Like.
Yeah. You'll be the official like live tweeter of the event.
Honestly. Right. I think that's essentially all the questions I have for you. I feel like I could go on all day, but now's a nice time to end it. That was a very great speech you had. I'm happy your public speaking class came in clutch that time. So
online public speaking class.
But yeah, that's pretty much what I've got. Julia, it's been amazing having you on. Very, very much love everything you said today. I'm definitely going to check out your show, Darling Live. Like your page is just so bright and colorful. I just can't help but go back to it at some point. So
thank you. This was so fun, and thank you for everything that you're doing with your podcast. It's so important that you're telling these stories and sharing your own story, and I'm so thankful I got to be a part of it. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. The pleasure was all mine. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. Thank you.